Opportunity Knocks by nikkiRA. Chapter 7. The next morning he wakes up in his cabin, which is how he knows the day resets again. Because he went to sleep at Camp Jupiter. This is probably the day when he should talk to Annabeth and Piper, but yesterday had been so tiring that all he wants to do today is sleep. He knows that he isn't going to be able to do that, but he is desperate for a day with even the tiniest semblance of normalcy. So he'll start asking for help later. For today, he's going to kick back and live through this day as if it were a normal day. That includes capture the flag and even the campfire. He's not particularly eager to redo the day, but he thinks he deserves a chance to sit back and pretend like his life wasn't falling to shit. He gets up and gets dressed and goes to meet Jason, mostly because hearing "sup dude" would totally ruin what he was hoping would be a fairly decent day, considering he's lived through it about 5 times already. As he's sitting on the steps of the Zeus cabin, he tries to figure out exactly how many days he's lived through. There was the first one, when he tried to guess well. There was the second day, when he didn't. The third day, when he had tested Aphrodite's limits by running around the world. And the fourth, he'd gone to the underworld with his father. That meant that yesterday was the 5th. Which means today is the 6th time he has relived this day. When Jason finally comes outside to meet him, he looks surprised to see Nico sitting on his front step. "Hey, what's up?" Nico shrugs. "I was getting hungry." "You should have knocked. I was just waiting around." Jason generally didn't get him until 9, but Nico has a very important appointment that he has to make at around 20 after 10, so it's time to start his day a little earlier. "Come on, let's go get breakfast." Percy isn't there yet, so they take a seat at the Zeus table. They chatter aimlessly about capture the flag, even though Nico knows that very shortly Percy will show up with the news that he has to join their side. Sure enough, very shortly there is a very loud shriek and Percy comes sprinting towards them. "Hide me," he says, as Nico and Jason survey him in amusement. Percy crouches behind Nico as Annabeth and Piper come around the corner, both of them soaking wet. Piper looks vaguely annoyed, but more like she expected this than anything else. Her and Percy's prank war had been going on since last summer, and it wasn't the first time an unlucky camper had gotten caught in the crossfire. But there was a big difference between a random camper and your girlfriend. Piper looks annoyed and maybe grudgingly amused, but Annabeth looks murderous. "What did you do?" Jason asks, although it's not too hard to extrapolate based on the soaking wet girls in front of them and the son of Poseidon crouched behind them. "I'm not risking my life to protect you if Annabeth attacks," Nico tells him. Annabeth glares at the 3 of them, as if Nico had any say in her current situation. "Toilet water?" Annabeth hisses. Jason winces. "All in all, it wasn't even that good of a prank," Piper says. "Using your powers aren't a prank. If they were, I would have used permanent makeup on you ages ago." "I was running out of ideas, alright? And I didn't use my powers, I'll have you know. I asked Leo to help me rig that up." "That's against the rules." "There are no rules in war, McLean." "Percy," Annabeth says in a lower voice, "if you want war, I am willing to give you war." She storms away, and Piper, after giving Percy the 2 eyes to her finger look, turns and follows. "I love you," Percy calls off to Annabeth, who gives him a hand gesture that Karen would certainly not approve of. Percy stands up and sits down across from Nico. "Can I be on your team for capture the flag?" Nico just laughs. At 10:20, Nico excuses himself back to his cabin before travelling to the place he had found Billy yesterday. Sure enough, he sees the huge hulking figure of the Cyclops, and once again he stabs it easily, watching it disintegrate before turning to the boy huddled up against the wall. "You okay?" he asks. Billy swallows and raises a trembling hand up to wipe some Cyclops off his face. "He only had one eye," he says slowly. Nico nods. "Yeah, he did. I'm Nico." Billy stands up straight and looks at Nico's sword. "I'm Billy. Is that a real sword?" "Yeah, do you want to hold it?" Saving a kid from certain death and then letting him hold a deadly weapon is probably the quickest way to earn his trust, Nico thinks. Billy takes the sword and holds it the same way he had yesterday, as if he was scared. Is he going to come back? He asks, eyeing the pile of former Cyclops. Nah, but there are more like that, don't you? Billy looks up at him. You've seen monsters too? Tons. And you know how to kill them? Nico nods again. I could teach you how to kill monsters if you like. I can bring you back to my camp. Billy looks like he's ready to go right then and there when he stops and slumps looking upset. Alana said I'm not supposed to go with strangers. Is that your sister? How'd you know? I have a sister too, and she worries about me a lot. Billy looks at the ground. She was supposed to be back by now. She left to go find something to eat. He looks at where the Cyclops had been again. I'll tell you what, kid. Come with me right now, and I promise I'll bring you back here. But it's not safe for you to stay here. Billy swallows, and now that Nico knows him better, he can see that what he had originally thought to be reluctance about leaving was actually guilt about the fact that he wanted to. What kind of camp is it? Like a summer camp? Is it an overnight camp? How many people are there? Does everyone see monsters? Here we go. Is that a yes? Billy nods. How do we get there? Is it in New York? Do you have to pay? Because I don't have any money. Would I get a sword like yours? Nico sighs. I have a friend who can answer all of those questions. But we have to go now, okay? For how long will it take us to get there? Faster than you can blink. Hold on to my arm, okay? Once again, he goes to move, but then holds back and looks at Nico warily. Alana always said strangers were bad and that I should never trust anyone but her. That can be good advice. Kind of lonely though, isn't it? Billy looks at his sword wistfully. Nico uses another tactic he had used yesterday. You can hold my sword again if you want. That way, if anything bad happens, you can easily defend yourself. This is the thing that tips Billy over, just as he knew it would. Hold on to that tightly, don't drop it. Billy clutches the sword with white knuckles, and then nods when Nico asks if he's ready. Wow, that was weird. How did you do that? Where are we? Are we still in New York? I've never been outside of New York. One time I had a dream I was in California. When I woke up, I was still just in New York. Nico shoots him a sharp glance. He doesn't know what this could mean. Were there people who knew what was happening? Or was it just one of those weird child things? Or maybe it had something to do with his parentage. We're still in New York. This is where my camp is. How do you know they'll take me? Is there a test? Do you see that tree? If you can walk past that tree, you pass. Billy studies his face, possibly to see if he was joking, and then handed Nico his sword back before sprinting up the hill. Nico can't help but feel a little apprehensive, but Billy steps across the boundary with ease. He hurries to catch up to him. He hadn't thought he was gone that long, but when he nears his cabin, he sees Jason, Will, and Percy milling about anxiously. Will is the first one to notice him. He looks extremely irritated, but then he catches sight of Billy, and the look changes to one of confusion. Where'd you go? Jesus, you three are jumpy. I wasn't gone that long. You're kind of the king of disappearing, Percy says, but he is also focused on the child at Nico's side, who is studying Will's bow with interest. Who's that? This is Billy. I saved him from a Cyclops. So you did leave camp. What for? I was, hungry. None of them clearly believe this, but they are more preoccupied with Billy. They will likely drill him later, but Billy takes this lull in conversation to butt in. Do you know how to shoot a bow and arrow? He asks Will with wonder in his voice. Will blinks, taken aback. Kind of, I suppose. I'm not that good, but... Cool. Can you teach me? Do you have a sword like Nico? Is it black? Can you... And off he goes. Will is staring at him in wonder as Billy fires off questions, and Percy raises his eyebrows. He's something, isn't he? He asks a lot of questions, Nico says quietly. It's exhausting. Percy grins at him. Gee, I wonder what it's like to have a 10-year-old constantly following you around firing questions, Percy says. It's probably really annoying, right? Nico rolls his eyes. Shut up, Percy. Do you think he knows anything about mythomagic? Shut up, Percy, he says, although he is fighting back a grin. We should take him to Chiron, Jason says, before he breaks well. Do you fight monsters too? I'm a doctor. Really? Wow. Do you have to go to school for that? Do you do surgery? Is that... Hey, Billy, Nico interjects. I'm going to take you to meet the head of camp, okay? Can you run ahead to Chiron? He adds... Can you run ahead to Chiron? He adds quieter to Will. And tell him he should probably use the wheelchair for now. Will nods, looking a little thankful to be able to get away from the never-ending barrage of questions. Billy looks undeterred, instead turning his attention to Percy. Do you have a sword? Yeah, do you want to see it? Billy is so enthralled by Riptide that he doesn't speak the whole way to the big house. How'd you do that? Nico says in wonder. I have experience with annoying children, remember? He says with a wink. You have experience with being annoying, is Nico's retort. True to Camp Half-Blood tradition, Billy is shown the orientation video and then thrown right into Capture the Flag, which Nico thinks is a tradition that should probably be revamped. Billy is put on guard duty with him. He doesn't bother urging Jason and Percy to slow down. He has a funny feeling that despite the affection he has for the boy, too much isolated time in the forest with him might cause Nico to go insane. You didn't tell me that man was half horse. Nico opens his mouth to respond to it. You didn't tell me the man was half horse. Nico opens his mouth to respond to his, but it appears he was not supposed to, because Billy carries on. He said the Greek and Roman gods are real. Isn't that crazy? He said my mother was a goddess. He said I'll know by the time I'm 13 who she is. Who's your mom? Maria D'Angelo, Nico says with a smirk. Billy looks at him with furrowed eyebrows before realization dawns. So your dad is a god. Who is he? Hades. Wow, Karen said he was one of the most powerful gods. Who's Will's dad? And Percy? And Jason? Apollo, Poseidon, and Zeus. Wow, do you guys have powers? Is that how we got here? Because of your powers? You said you had a sister. When can I meet her? Do I have powers? It depends who your mother is, Nico said tiredly. He is incredibly relieved when the horn blows. Billy follows him as he heads out of the forest. Karen said he'll stay in the Hermes cabin until I'm claimed. I asked if I could stay with you, but he said it was against camp rules. Nico sends a quick thank you to Chiron, and they'll eat dinner at their table too, but he said I could sit with you then if I really wanted to. Nico sighs, but he's smiling. Great kid. Maybe you won't be able to talk as much with your mouth full. Alana always said I talk too much. When are we going to go back? Nico tells him the idea again, of writing her a note and setting a time when they'll go back. This seems to please Billy. This means she is a demigod too, right? So she can come to camp too, right? Nico swallows. Yeah, Billy, it does. Seems to be the safest answer. They walk in silence for a bit, before Billy finally says, So what do you eat for dinner? And that, of course, leads to a whole barrage of questions, which Nico eventually stops listening to. Woo! Oh, I love this so much. What do you mean Billy doesn't remember? Is he pretending? Is he pretending? It could have just been, a child thing. But, I was really hoping Nico would have a small little Billy on his side as they traverse the time travel world. I don't know what I'm talking about. Oh, I guess we'll see further on. There's 15 chapters. We're in chapter 7. So, I don't want to do the math right now. It's not working. Okay, thanks for listening. Bye-bye.